We're living in the book of Acts, and there's a whole new generation that's coming up. The rising up of Christians all over the world as they're persecuted is happening in real time. What's going on in the Church of Iran, they're like the book of Acts. And also in the UK, standing up in Trafalgar Square, London will belong to Jesus, and we bow to no king but King Jesus. That's the book of Acts. Millennials and Gen Z buying all these Bibles, they're the ones that are stepping out and going to church, new church attendees. Even with the persecution, there's a movement and a hunger for God. Everything is happening like that. We can all see it at the same time. Welcome everyone to the Patriot Project on Mugwump Media. Thanks for joining the conversation this evening. We appreciate it. Kevin, I think this show could be entitled A Tale of Two Cities, or perhaps two completely different schools of thought.
Well, I wasn't a real fan of school, and I'm really not a fan of the city, so I'm not sure I want to participate.
Right. Are you a fan of thinking?
Well, when I'm awake.
Right.
Thinking when I'm asleep sometimes causes me to be restless. I can't even say restless at the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the reason I'm saying all this, I was poring over social media over the last couple of days, and I wasn't sure exactly what we were going to do the podcast on this week. A couple of things came up over the last couple of days that just, I thought, I need to talk about this also. And it's good. It's encouraging. We're living in the book of Acts, folks. We really are. And I think one of these days we'll see that we're living in the book of Acts. And there's a whole new generation that's coming up. And they need us. They need all of us older people. They are going to become the remnant, a great addition to the remnant. And I just appreciate them. And I guess I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. Now, there is a deepening divide in opinions about everything, Kevin. Everything.
Well, everybody has opinions. So.
Oh, my gosh. Everybody has an opinion like everybody has a nose. That's right. Everything about the conservative world, of course. We've got this crazy split that's gone on among conservatives, both spiritually and politically. That's what's crazy is before it was mostly the politicians, but there's a lot of stuff going on among churches and among church leaders and the spiritual world. Not everybody's agreeing with each other. And tonight, I was going to talk just a little bit about that. And where does God land? Where does God land, really? Politically, the conflict with Iran, obviously, there's a lot going on with that right now. The SAVE Act, our politicians not wanting to do what over 80% of the people want done. And now, apparently, you've got a church leader that's agreeing with them out of his lane, Kevin. And even all the way down to the state of the American church and where they are with the younger generation, this group of folks that are coming in. And I firmly believe, Kevin, that God is in all of it. We're being sifted.
God's in all of it. It's just we don't always recognize what God's doing and where He's at. He's never changed. He's always the same. And there's so many changes taking place all around us that sometimes we get distracted with the things that we shouldn't even, we shouldn't be concerned about. But there's things that we should be very concerned about.
Well, and we forget to look at what's real and what our purpose is. We really do. Absolutely. And then you see things like what's going on in the Church of Iran, and you think, wow, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. They're like the book of Acts for sure. This is what I know is true from the depths of my soul. And you guys, if you've listened to us for very long, you've heard this before. The rising up of Christians all over the world as they're persecuted is happening in real time, everywhere in different countries. We're watching it. And unlike our great-grandparents, because of satellite, we can all see it at the same time. It's crazy. Everything is happening like that, instantaneous. But at the same time, even with the persecution, there's a movement and a hunger for God in nations all over the world, in America. In America, we see that too. Now, my personal Facebook friends, I'm going to apologize to you now. You probably get really irritated with me because I put up all kinds of pictures and video, drone footage of huge gatherings worldwide. That's just my thing. I'm a revival watcher, an awakening watcher. And in America, mostly in the universities among Gen Z, but also among the millennials. They're starting to get excited too. We hear of record numbers. Remember when Brett was here last time? And we talked to him about one of the studies that was done is they say not only are millennials and Gen Z buying all these Bibles, man, they're buying a lot of Bibles, record setting, but also they're the ones that are stepping out and going to church, new church attendees. Basically, the leaders in that now are Gen Z and millennials.
Yes.
Go figure. And these are statistics that we've heard recently. And also in the UK, even though the UK, oh my Lord, they're going to hell in a handbasket. Hopefully, God hears them. You know, Daniel Chand standing up in Trafalgar Square, looking them all in the eye and saying, with his crowd of followers, you know, saying, what was it he said? Jesus will belong, London will belong to Jesus, and we bow to no king but King Jesus.
That's right.
He could have been arrested.
Mm-hmm.
That's the book of Acts. Amazing. Yes. But we watch all this stuff, and those of us who are awake, not woke, but awake and watching, we know what's happening without a shadow of a doubt. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take all these studies to show us what's going on because we see it in real time. Now, the movement among the universities began in February 2023. But also, I honestly think it started earlier. That generation, 2020, when COVID came about, and that generation, Gen Z, couldn't go to school. They couldn't do their graduations. They couldn't go to proms. Their time was stolen from them. Many things were stolen from them. They became suspicious and cynical and untrusting of many of the politicians and some of the things that they were seeing happen. I get that too. In 2023, in February, something amazing happened. And if you guys have listened to us again before, you've heard me talk about the Jesus People movement in the 60s and 70s. Well, something happened at that time, right before, in the 60s. There's a little tiny college, I think it's Methodist, in Kentucky called Asbury College. Multiple times over the last, 50 to 75 years, whenever a revival would start in America, Asbury would start into, there would be a spontaneous revival that would occur at Asbury University. It's like the gunshot over the bow. It's like something that just happens. It's happened multiple times. I think the last time it happened was right before the Jesus People movement in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this time it happened in February of 2023. It was a spontaneous move of God. And this powerful move was student-led. Nobody was leading it. It just started. It was marked by on-your-face repentance, basically just down before God, only wanting what God wanted, and a hunger, just a hunger for God. Mm-hmm. This awakening, because that's what it was, lasted for 2.5 weeks until the college literally had to shut it down because nobody could go to college. So in order to keep their college moving, they shut it down. It is estimated that 50,000 to 70,000 visitors attended. Now, here's the cool thing. In that little bunch, countless students and their families visited Asbury, and when they went away, they carried the flame. They carried it back to their hometowns, and they carried it back to their schools. Unite Us, a college ministry movement, began 6 months after Asbury started in September of 2023 at Auburn University after founder Tanya Pruitt felt a calling to address the anxiety, depression, and spiritual hunger among the Gen Z students in the college students at their university. And one of the students, and it was a small group, there was like 6 girls that started praying. They prayed at a local lake, or actually a big pond is what it was. And she began to feel like they needed to have some kind of a like a praise and worship movement in their arena there. I think it's called the Neville Arena. So they set something up. 6 students leading prayers by a lake turned into thousands of people that showed up at this worship event, and it resulted in massive salvations and baptisms, and it lit the flame for a nationwide movement. That was the first, and it went on from there. And it's still going on. This is what's amazing. If you look on Facebook, like I said, my personal Facebook has got tons of that stuff, because every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, there it is. Another state, another college, another college, another college. And then, of course, out of the country is also being influenced, not just by that, but by Charlie Kirk's death. Remember, we are Charlie Kirk. We are Charlie Kirk. They were watching online. Charlie was part of it. He was part of it. Now, as you can tell, that means a lot to me, because you can see what's going on. Now, I'm having a hard time not only with the politicians in Washington, D.C., who don't seem to understand that when they are elected, and over 80% of the people in the United States think that they should vote for something like the SAVE Act, which will preserve our elections with voter ID. Go figure. Well, a lot of these supposedly conservative people, these politicians, decide they're not going to do it. And I'm having a hard time with that, number one. But when you have somebody that jumps out of their lane from the church, a well-known church figure, to agree with them, and also says a bunch of other stuff, that's concerning. And this is what I'm talking about. We've got a lot of people that are tone deaf, that don't have a clue what's going on. You kind of expect politicians to do that. Elections have to fix this, and holding their feet to the fire. But when people from the church that you've trusted for years do this stuff, it's really annoying and very upsetting. Now, Tony Perkins, and again, don't anybody think I hate him or anything. I'm not. This is not a I hate Tony Perkins speech. But I think he's been in Washington, D.C. a little too long, Kevin.
There's a lot of people's been there just a little too long.
Yeah. He serves as the president of the Family Research Council, which is a nice council. I mean, it's done a lot of good stuff. It's got a good mission. It's a conservative Christian nonprofit organization and lobbying group based in Washington, D.C. Now, he's led the organization since 2003, been there a long time, focusing on shaping public policy from a biblical worldview. Their mission is promoting faith, family, and freedom through research and lobbying. The Holy Spirit would be good to have in that mission too, but you know how that goes. Now, I have a big disagreement with this gentleman. I saw a couple of things. Within 2 days, something popped up, and it just really bothered me. First of all, he agrees with Senator Majority. He went on Facebook. He had somebody write the article, but he was quoted. He agrees with Senate Majority Leader John Thune in viewing the original talking filibuster, that's what everybody did for years and years and years. They made them stand up and explain why they were against what their constituents wanted, right? If they disagree, put them on the record. But anyway, the original talking filibuster, he views that as a flawed strategy. Yeah. He argues that the legislative filibuster should be preserved rather than done away with. In other words, where you just maybe make a phone call or sign your name and say, well, I really don't want to filibuster, but I'm filibustering, so let's just kill the bill. Basically, they don't have to do anything. They can just kill the bill, because you can't get 60 people to agree in this very divided political time. Now, he also, Tony Perkins, went on to say that if they bring back the talking filibuster and do away, even though it's always been, basically they just did an addendum with this stupid legislative filibuster where basically they don't have to do anything for it, that if they bring back the talking filibuster and do away with the legislative filibuster, that's going to cause problems for the GOP later on when the Dems are in control. Well, I got news for you. if we don't get the SAVE Act through, Mr. Perkins, I don't know that we're going to be in charge very long. I think that probably the Democrats are going to jump back in with their cheating, and then they're going to do away with it anyway.
They like to follow, well, they don't follow rules. They just do what they have to.
So anyway, that just rubbed me the wrong way because, again, why are you there? Are you there because you're wanting to rub elbows with the political class, or are you there because you're trying to be an advocate for good policies, for spiritual policies? That's what I thought it was for. Seems to me, Mr. Perkins, like you might have jumped out of your lane on that one. Now, spiritually, I disagree with him because of something and he does studies in this outfit that he has, the Cultural Research Center. And he had actually done this study, apparently this year. It's recent. And this was done on March 3rd. This was actually from the Arizona Christian University. And I think maybe he's affiliated with it. I'm not for sure which. And again, I don't think they're bad. I'm sure they're probably a good university. But I really didn't like what they had to say. And some of his statistics were very tone deaf and very cynical, I just got to say. And I think that he also is not paying any attention to the growing remnant of people that are now coming into the church. He's not, Kevin. That's an
issue. We've got a whole generation out there that is accepting Christ.
Yeah.
And they started out seeking on their own, most of them. They weren't told about Jesus by somebody. No one approached them, but they knew they needed something. They find Christ, they accept him, they get baptized, and then they start seeking. Yeah. They're seeking the truth, and they're seeking a relationship with God. Mm-hmm. And I think we've got a lot of opportunities to be busy here as a church doing those things we've been called to do.
Oh, yeah. And,
as we go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're not supposed to be derelict and just talking about.
Well,
it's very frustrating to see these young people that have a need of a mentor, and we've got so many people in the church, and we're somehow not filling that gap. We're not building that bridge and that relationship between them to where we can be mentors.
Well, and we're not speaking to them in a way that they feel applies to them. It's like we talked about last week whenever we did the podcast on the library board. I mean, we really couldn't get anybody. I mean, there was just a few pastors that were willing to do much. Reggie's great, but there's a few pastors that stood up, but not very many. Most of them don't want to be involved. So if they think that their youth are leaving their churches, well, they probably are. I think the statistic was like 70-some percentage are leaving those kind of churches, which are the mainstream churches. He has a doctorate in divinity from Liberty University, which, again, I'm not ragging on Liberty, but he's got a doctorate of divinity. He's Dr. Perkins. He also has a master's in public administration degree from Louisiana State University. So he's a very educated man, obviously. He's also a Baptist pastor. And I'm not ragging on Baptists. That's where Kevin and I are from. So, but I do think that he is removed. I think he is expecting. Let me just read this. Let me read this before I give that. This was what they wrote down in the article. In the weeks following the murder of Christian activist Charlie Kirk last September, many speculated that the tragedy might ignite a spiritual awakening in America. I have news for them. That was something that happened, but that was not what started it. It started in 2020, and it sparked in 2023. They weren't watching. They obviously don't know what was going on. Charlie was part of it. He was part of it, Kevin. His death, yeah, it absolutely, it's sparked a lot.
This is a movement of God, not a movement of Charlie Kirk.
And that's the mistake they're making, is they were thinking, oh, well, great. Well, this is going to ignite a spiritual awakening in America. And again, this is a college. Anecdotes of increased church attendance and Bible purchases fueled hope that revival was stirring, especially among younger Americans. But any renewed interest in Christianity has not translated into deeper biblical conviction. According to new findings from the American Worldview Inventory 2026, the annual study of the worldview of Americans from the Cultural Research Center at Arizona Christian University. In fact, the new study of the nation's worldview landscape adult shows, okay, we got a typo. This is from a university. Shows that only 4% of
I'm
qualify.
sorry, but I have to grin about that.
I'm sorry. I don't have as many typos as they do. Qualify as having a biblical worldview, including a jaw-dropping low of just 1% among Gen Z ages 18 to 22. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not even going to read anymore because it makes me irritated. And of course, at the very last, the last 2 pages, well, they do a plug for themselves. If your kids go to this college, they're going to be doing much better than these terrible Gen Z that don't know anything. The ACU discipleship model persuasively shows a turnaround is very possible, but it must be intentional and strategic and requires an immersive multi-year commitment. In other words, parents, get out your checkbook because you got to put your kid in there and get lots of education from our college. So here's what irritates me. This is so cynical. And it's absolutely tone deaf. And what they're doing is they're expecting theological skills from a very young and biblically inexperienced generation. They don't even know who's coming up the ranks. They don't know. They've not been watching, so they don't see. They don't see what we get to see. Kim Clement, one of the things he prophesied in, I think it was 2013 or 2014, and he talked about a generation that swept through the cities, a generation that started out in the colleges and created a movement like the Jesus People movement, only longer lasting and bigger. And he talked about how they didn't look like church people and they didn't sound like church people and they had tattoos on their arms. Gen Z is not like the people that have left their churches. And Kevin, I think part of the reason they've left their churches is because I get so frustrated because they don't understand. You know, you hear all these people, these mainline churches, that their idea of growing their church is not, let's do something to bring in these people. Their idea of growing the church is, well, let's go get an expert to tell us, you know, do we need to move our benches out and put chairs in? Do we need to build another room? Do we need to put in a coffee shop? What is it you always say?
Well, big screens, skinny jeans, and fog machines.
Seeker-friendly. There's been so much seeker-friendly. That's why they're losing their people.
Well, they're recruiting people to go to church, and that's not our mission.
No.
Church is where people go to fellowship. We go to corporately worship and to learn. We're supposed to reason in the Scriptures together.
Yep.
And part of that reasoning in the Scriptures is, well, I guess I can see providing an environment that's comfortable to them, but they're there to learn, and they need mentored, not sit in their own room. And
that's right.
I guess one of my biggest pet peeves, if we're bringing those up, is the church. The what the church is supposed to look like. The Book of Acts. That was a pretty diverse bunch, if we put them made them into a contemporary church today, a people meeting, you know what, the media would be all over them, and the church would be condemning them because they were in trouble. They were all getting arrested. They were getting beaten. Every town they went to, there was a mob, and it was incited by the religious leaders of the day, not necessarily the Christians. But, you know, we've lost touch with that basic mission of leading the world to Christ. Yeah. And then we're supposed to make disciples. Yeah. And it's more important, I think, to follow up on how many times were you saved before we ever actually accepted Christ? I can remember when we were a young couple. We were 23 before we were ever actually saved. I can remember I'd come home from work and you'd talk about a church stop by, and you would always try to go there, but I never saw any change in you or anything, and you got pretty cynical because of that. And I see these young people today, they're in that same place. They're seeking a place to learn about Christ. They want to know about Christ. They don't want to know about the church and all those other things.
Well, and a record number of them. In New York City, they're crowding into Catholic and Orthodox churches for structure.
Yes.
Because they don't know anything and gathering for Bible studies. It's amazing. It was on Fox News just a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
I want to leave you, before we get off the air tonight, I want to leave you with something real. You're going to love this. This is the Book of Acts. The American church has been safe and secure for so long that we don't understand what really happened back then. We don't have a clue what it means to listen to God and take a risk. R-I-S-K means obedience.
Yes.
This is what a man named Robbie Dawkins said on an interview he did on a podcast called War, Faith, and the Underground Church. Now, Robbie has been ministering to the underground church in Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Afghanistan since 2006. Robbie started bravely bringing in Bibles and instructional books translated in Farsi, which carries a death penalty if caught. He was young at that point. He told stories of being caught multiple times and the miracles that God did whenever the secret police would stop him, open his suitcase, pull him out. He even had it. He wasn't the smartest in the beginning, but he showed one of the Bibles that had in Farsi, New Testament, Holy Bible. And he said one of the coolest things that happened, an absolute miracle. Again, he stepped out and God blessed him. Whenever he was in an airport and he got stopped, they pulled out a Bible. The woman who looked at it reads Farsi. She's from Iran. She pulls out this Bible that says Holy Bible, New Testament in Farsi. Do you know what she said, Kevin? She goes, "Why are you bringing Qurans into Iran? We have plenty of them here. We don't need more." She obviously wasn't a fan of them, like many Iranians aren't. And do you know what he said? He goes, to give us gifts. Can you imagine how scared he was? He goes, to give us gifts. And she said, oh, okay. Slung the Bibles back in and zipped it up and sent him on his way with his heart pounding. And you know the miracle that he said that occurred there? He said it was like a veil came over her face. She couldn't see. She saw a Quran rather than a Bible, which was printed in her language. Crazy. Because the Iranian police have been shooting and wounding the protesters. Folks, if you go to the hospital and have gunshot wounds, you'll usually be killed, and your physician might be jailed. Robbie has been setting up underground hospitals and smuggling in water and medical supplies for them. He could get in a bunch of trouble for doing that too, possibly hauled off and jailed or killed. Robbie says, and this, I wish Mr. Perkins could hear this. Robbie says that so many in the underground church are new believers. They know so little other than Jesus saved them, and they are hungry to learn about him. Robbie says it's almost like teaching little children, but they are very dedicated. They have to be. They could die for their faith, and they are very protective of each other. Robbie says that they are experiencing, get this, men in white dreams. They come to him and tell him why they come to find the church, to seek it out, is because Jesus told them to come.
Yes.
Also, angelic visitations. And the underground secret police are a constant threat. Robbie has developed several underground schools in the Middle East where his students learn and practice ministering to others through prayer. Prayer is huge. Yes. He told the story of one woman who was in Robbie's school who was sitting in a coffee shop waiting for God to show her someone to pray for, and that's deadly. That could be deadly dangerous if she asked the wrong person. A woman walked in and sat at a table near her. This Christian lady got up and walked over to the other woman and asked her, bravely, if she needed healing or if she had questions about her life, could she pray for her? The woman looked up from the table and said, I'm so glad that you've asked that, because I'm with the secret police, and I've come for you. I'm here to arrest you. The Christian woman's heart was beating hard, but later on she testified that the true miracle that happened at that moment was that her mind went blank. Zero. She had nothing to say. I hate it when that happens. And then, miraculously, God started speaking through her. She said, well, I have a question for you. Do you have a daughter? The secret policewoman looked at her suspiciously and answered, Yes. The Christian woman continued, and your daughter's having trouble sleeping because of fear. You try to console her. You try to hold her, but you can't because of fear. She's plagued by terror, and she has the worst time sleeping. The secret policewoman, visibly shaken, said, "That is every night of my life." The Christian woman replied, "That's a demon from hell, and the prayer that I'm going to pray will break its power. Your daughter will sleep well tonight. And by the way, have you been struggling with depression since you were abandoned and left alone?" The secret policewoman said, "How could you know that? 2 years ago, my husband abandoned me and left me alone. I've been in severe depression ever since." The Christian woman, without fear, moved very close, laid hands on her and said, "I'm going to pray for you, and the peace of Christ is going to come on you, and you will be set free from that depression." She began to pray for her, and the woman began to weep. Right there on the spot, the secret police woman accepted Christ. Then she tearfully confided, "I don't know what I'm going to do for a job now, but I got to be part of this." Robbie told multiple stories about close calls that had been reported to him from his school, and miraculously, none of his students have been arrested. The Iranian underground church has been surviving and thriving, often winning the souls of former Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Taliban members. Brave. Folks, the book of Acts is present now in our time.
Absolutely. The Apostle Peter, I often think, okay, if Peter was here now, how would he be viewed by me? You know, what would I recognize what he was doing and how God was working in his life if I met a man that was doing those same things? And you know what? I can answer that question because we have those men out there now that are willing to do those very things, that are risking everything, what you said about risk. Yeah. And I often think if Peter filled out an application to be a pastor or to preach one sermon in a church now, how many of our churches would welcome him with open arms, an unlearned and uneducated man that walked with Christ? Those simple words that he spoke, and the words we've got. And those disciples, those early disciples, they had no idea how big those things were that they were doing, but they knew they had to do them. And we need that same fire. You know what? Yes. That's the fire, is not how much we know, but what we know. Yeah. And that knowledge of how Christ changed my life.
Yeah, they know nothing.
When I was a young Christian, I long for those days when I first, when we're in God's presence again, that humility that we're going to feel, because this is not about us. This is about the kingdom. Right. This is about the children that God is bringing home.
And they are children.
Yes.
This young generation, this remnant generation. But folks, sanctification takes time. Mm-hmm. And the Bible tells us that. That's why you don't put new Christians in charge of things.
No.
That's how it is. And, you know, worldview, yes, the Bible is true. Absolutely. We need to teach them that. But it comes gradually. Mm-hmm. I just had to.
It's not our works. It's not our doctrine.
No, not
it's
at all.
Our faith.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, folks, thanks for joining us again this evening. The book of Acts, like I said, is here and now in our generation, and we just have to be able to see it and join God in what he's doing, and not cast out those young ones and discount them before they're even able to join us in full force. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're coming.
We need them.
Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to keep the good news flowing, and we'll be back again soon with more news, more information, and hopefully more encouragement. And folks, we always want to keep you informed. We want to keep you inspired, and always stay independent. God bless.